So I just got the prompt that I'm being recorded, and that means that I have to be extra specially careful to not say anything I shouldn't say, which is the time of the academic life for all of us now. In some ways it should be, in some ways maybe not. But anyway, thank you very much for having me, classical singer. We've had a long relationship over the years with many wonderful gatherings, conventions, and it's great to be back with them and through them with you all. So, yeah, so tonight is something that I have done for years and years when I've come to classical singer and other singing vocal type events, which is to talk about the training of the TBB voice, also known as the male voice, but we use different terminology now, which is a little bit more embracing and a little bit more open to everybody. So we're going to talk about this as TBB for the male singers types, tenor, baritone, and bass, if they identify that way. And then so there is some reference to the treble voices, which are also known as the female voices. Um, but that's the last time that I'll refer to them as anything but treble or TBB. This is something that I am very impassioned about in my own teaching, in my own life as a tenor, while I was singing. And it is grounded in a lot of research in the form of interviews, conversations with great singers and great teachers that helped me codify and bring everything together into my own personal modus operandus of imparting the information to a young TBB voice. Um, my beginnings of the niche quality of this actually came from an association that my family, who lived in California, had with tenor Luciano Pavarotti. And Luciano Pavarotti, of course, we don't need to explain who he was and what he did and how he did it. But what you might not know is that he was incredibly generous as a person, as an artist. Um, and he didn't know me at all. But when he found out, when I met him backstage, that I was um, a young kid trying to become a tenor, he said, I need to hear you. I want to hear you. So I went to the Huntington Hotel in San Francisco where he was staying while he was performing there. And I did just that with my mom and dad with me. I was 17 years old and I sang for him. Not unlike for a young tenor wanting to do this kind of career, singing before God. And uh, it was an amazing experience. And from that moment on, Luciano was a mentor and a friend to the family, and always had an eye out as I went through my studies to hear how I was doing. And he was the one that told me all about what I'm going to tell all of you tonight, which is that there is a specificity in the way we understand the TBB voice, and there is a specificity in how we can train that voice, according to one of the individuals that did it better than anybody in my generation, in my lifetime. Um, I was 4 years old when UC Bierling died, so I cannot include him, but I can certainly include Luciano and others. But it was really mainly Luciano that gave me very specific and serious um, information. And so this is what I would like to do for all of you. That's in a kind of a nutshell. But I would like to now continue with the talk about what this is about before we get to the singing by sharing a screen with PowerPoint, which I'm going to do right now. Okay. Everybody can see that, right? Okay. So training the TBB voice for those that identify as tenor, baritone, or bass voice. Okay. So does this not advance? There we go. Okay, so the first thing that I'd like to talk about is the characteristics of a voice that is growing up through puberty into the teenage years, into young adulthood, and finally coming into the university setting at the age of 17 or 18, generally. What we have to know about this young TBB voice is what kind of effects growing up, socializing, and beginning to be introduced to classical music, hopefully through the choral programs at their high school or private instruction along the way. So this whole thing about training the male voice must center on the equalization of the registers that we find in any voice, but in tonight's case, the TBB voice. So there is a strong cultivation and development for the young TBB voice that is much geared toward the chest register, the modal register, the speech register, these kinds of terminologies that apply to that. As they grow up, their voice is very unstable. Through puberty, the voice breaks, the voice yodels into some sort of a falsetto sound when the young TBB voice doesn't really mean for it to. It can be a very embarrassing time, all of that. And so there is a real determination to put some kind of masculinity and core into that sound, beginning with the speaking voice. And so what you have then is a register that they are favoring over anything that is less masculine as they're developing their personalities, their identity of a young adult, all of that. That does have a strong influence, even in this current generation. So there then is a preponderance of focus on the sound that is created from the modal register. There is very little understanding or embracing or acceptance of the other one, the other register, which is more of a head voice. This is not necessarily what I mean when I say head voice. I don't necessarily mean falsetto voice, because as the great tenor Nikolai Gedda had explained to me when I had a chance to work over a role with him, very unfortunately, was that falsetto for him was a detached sound that could not be supported. And in fact, the true definition of falsetto from an anatomical standpoint is only a partial closure or adduction of the vocal cords, not a complete one. So there is a chink where air can move through there that should be held in subglottal pressure balance with the normal phonation of the vocal cords. And so because of that, you can't resist the breath coming up to create that subglottal pressure that every wind instrument has to perform. And so it can't be used. But he also said to me, but there is a lighter adjustment with this Kopfstimme in German, or voce di testa in Italian, that is the complete closure or adduction of the vocal cords, but the very thin, very light, very gentle sort of sound that can be supported. And so that's the kind of voice that we're looking for now to identify in the TBB voice. And that requires an explanation, a real sit down with the student to say, now, we have this. Let's see if we can't find that in your sound. So with that, we have an introduction to something that would generally never had occurred to the young TBB voice, that they have really the sense of only one register, and as all of you have heard, as that register is being asked to ascend the scale, there becomes a lot of resistance, a lot of tension developed, a lot of spreading of the sound. It turns into some kind of controlled yell. And that sound would be something like, ah, 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 yeah, getting nervous, right? Ah, and then there's a sound that is worth nothing except um, except intimidation and frustration to the student. What I'm doing there in that example is that I am using the modal register and I am trying to jack up that register as high as I possibly can. And so when you hear young TBB voices on the high school level that haven't really had this other access, which is what I'm talking about tonight, this is the only way in which they can sing anything above, well, for the tenor voice, anything above the staff. There's only one way, which is kind of a controlled and sometimes uncontrolled yell. So the analogy of the violin that you see here is what I mean by that is that they are not playing their instrument like a violinist would play the violin, where they have the bow on the string and they can simply place their finger very high on the fingerboard, pull the bow across, and the violin emits this beautiful sound with no effort at all. No, they're not doing it that way. The comparison would be, instead, they're taking the E string, say, of the violin, and they begin to twist it while they're pulling the bow across, twist it to try to make the higher pitch. So it's putting tremendous strain on the instrument, the violin itself. And so one or two things are going to happen as they continue to try to hit this or create these high tones on the violin that way. And that is, the violin itself could collapse on itself, could break, the neck of the violin could snap off, or the string would break, and if it flew this way, the violinist would have a nice welt across their face where the string struck them. In any case, it's a violent encounter that was never the intention of the builder of the instrument. Never. So what we have to do is explain to the student that there is another way. There is another way that they can find over time and vocal maturity to access the top like all of the professional TBB voices do. The goal then is to identify that other register and to unify it or to integrate the registers together so that it's not like a carpenter's butt joint where you have one register and then suddenly another register, but that you are beginning to find some kind of integration or overlap. So you start to see this over time until you get to a homogenized scale where the change to the top is not perceptible. The technique, the secret that the young TBB voice has now. Jonas Kaufmann said, "My teacher finally taught me the secrets of how to sing the top before I almost quit singing." Yeah. That it's an imperceptible aggiustamento, an adjustment that the Italians call that, between these registers, centering on what's called the passaggio. The passaggio is an Italian word. It means passage. It means something going from here to there. Übergang is the German word for it. So it means over like a bridge over troubled water, a bridge over something. Yeah. So those types of sounds, those types of descriptions of that, we generally refer to them as the passaggio. There are actually two of them. There are two of them. I will just speak of the tenor voice and the TBB voices. The tenor voice, the primo passaggio, is generally between B flat, B natural, and C before the top of the staff. So it's like ah. Something is already preparing the way for the top to have a chance at negotiating the more important of the two passaggi, which is the passaggio secondo. The passaggio secondo, again, I'm just using the reference for the tenor, but I will show you in this where they are for the other TBB voices. And they are generally from E natural to F sharp in this area right there. And if you're looking at the tenor tessitura of notes in a piece, these would be the ones at the top of the staff, E natural, F sharp, where there has to be some kind of an adjustment, some kind of a unifier right there. And this is a sound that is critical for the young TBB voice to know. So this comes now into a discussion briefly of the word covering. What in the world is that? How did that word come into the vocabulary of teaching singing? Or even colleagues talking about what they do on a certain note, on a certain vowel, covering. This comes from the word coprire, which means to cover up. Deckung, the German word, cover. Couvrir, the French word, cover. A much better way to describe this would be, if you look at letter B there, girare, which is the Italian word for turning. Turn, pivot. Deckung should probably not be in there. Drehen would be the German word for turning. Deckung is the covering word, so I'll have to change that. But we got the idea of covering because if you're cold at night, you have a cold winter night, and you wake up and the covers are off of you, you grab them and you pull them up and over. So there is a pulling up and over of a blanket. And so this is where the word covering the voice came from. We certainly don't want you to literally cover the voice, otherwise you'll be doing this. I'm covering my voice, and I don't think anyone's going to pay anything for me to sing like this. Although that mask that we all have to wear comes pretty darn close. But that is another issue and another discussion entirely. What is covering? Covering is the allowance by doing this procedure that now gives the voice a new way to access the upper part of the range. So what that covering does is, now if we talk about the anatomical issues of covering or turning, pivoting, what is happening there is that we have a lot of cartilages and a lot of muscularity, bilateral pairs of muscles in the laryngeal cavity, your instrument, right? So, but we're going to narrow it down to really only two. And those are the thyroarytenoid muscle and the cricothyroid muscle. Muscles that are named in the larynx are always expressed in terms of what they connect to. Thyroid cartilage, arytenoid cartilage. Thyroarytenoid muscle is the muscle that is connected to both of those cartilages. Cricothyroid is the cricoid cartilage connected to the thyroid cartilage. So there is a commonality then between these two muscle pairs, and that's the thyroid cartilage. They both connect to it, but they do completely different things to that cartilage and to the shape and the behavior of the larynx. So here you can see the cricothyroid muscles are here, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But if we go over here to the looking straight down like an otolaryngologist would be looking down at the larynx, the thyroarytenoid muscles are the vocal cords themselves. The thyroid cartilage is the one down on the bottom or the front. The arytenoid cartilage is in the back, and that's how the vocal cords adduct or close, and that's how in the modal register how they stretch. So the thyroid cartilage tilts back and it begins to stretch them. But they can't stretch them enough in that laryngeal position. So the cricothyroid muscle is incredibly important, because if you notice on the, whoops, what did I do? There we go. Let me just make that full screen again. So on this, these are not the vocal cords, the cricothyroid muscles. If this is your vocal cords and your nose is over here and the vocal cords are vibrating, the cricothyroid muscles are down here and at about 45 degrees to the vocal cords, but not the vocal cords. And when they tense, when they contract, this is where the word covering comes from. They will pull on the larynx and they will tilt it or pivot it this way so that the top of the larynx tilts forward. So you get this. You see singer after singer do that when they find that positional change. They'll do that gesture with their hand because that's what it feels like in their throat. So now the vocal cord, the cricothyroid muscles have engaged, and the whole larynx begins to tilt forward. So it is that, but what's important about that is that the thyroarytenoid muscles, the vocal cords themselves, are now becoming more passive. They're no longer responsible for creating so much of the pitch, the stretching to the pitch. That has been taken over by the cricothyroid muscle, and when the larynx is like that, the vocal cords are passive, then the cricothyroid can stretch those cords to the upper pitches much more easily. Much more easily. Now, these zones of passaggi for each of the voice types, tenor, baritone, and bass, they occur between, for the tenor, D natural and G natural, for the baritone, B flat and E flat, and for the bass, A flat and D natural. Roughly. This is roughly. But this is in that area where we want the young TBB voice to be aware that they want that larynx to begin to tilt so that those sustaining of those tones and the tones above these passaggio tones here is easier for them, is manageable, and in time becomes very beautiful. Okay, so the $64,000 question. These are the primo passaggio tones for the bass, F and G, the baritone, A flat, and the tenor, B flat. Be sure to pay attention to the clef there. This is the bass clef. So, about there for the tenor. That kind of sound. You're beginning to think, I'm going to prepare my way to do the final turning of my voice so that it will be able to go up. So the question then is this: how do you get these cricothyroids to innervate, to enact this this contraction to create the laryngeal tilt or the pivot? How do you do that? How do you train the TBV voice to do that? Well, here it is. In a nutshell, this was told to me as a 17-year-old by Luciano in a hotel room, that he had a piano in there, and he demonstrated, and I'll never forget the reaction I had to the sound of his voice 3 feet away from me, singing in the passaggio. It was something that I heard and something I felt at the same time. The focus, the resonance, all of that was just, it was an incredible aural experience that I had never had before. How do you get this thing to work? By closing the vowel. I'll say it again. How do you enact the pivoting procedure when you're in that range of notes called the zona di passaggio, and you want something to happen to allow the voice to sing with more beauty, more nobility, and above all else, with more ease? You must close the vowel. Closing the vowel is an acoustical, neurological action that sets off this coordinative thing and allows the cricothyroid to wake up and assist in bringing the voice, the vocal cords, into the higher pitches. So this is one of them that I use all the time with my TBB students. And it goes like this. Ah. So I'm writing ah. I'm writing then on the 1, 2, or 1, 3, 5. You notice that I'm using the phonetic for the closed O, which I did not use when I just made the demonstration. If I sing, ah, this is what I hear all the time in info lessons. Ah, ah, ah. But the vowel that they're using for O is not O at all. They try to make it an O, but it's still an open modal registered ah vowel. So the real O vowel that we're looking for is the one that is more closed. More closed, because then it will set this whole procedure in motion. It will wake up everything and you'll have a coordinated sound. So if you have ah, now by closing the O part of this, as Luciano would say, it's not the same. It's not the same. That is a noble sound. I can hear him saying that to me now. And so by closing the O more, so I'm singing O as in Minnesota, as in sometimes I'll say to my students, think of the word tot, the German word tot for dead, because that's what you're going to be if you don't do it. I do infuse a little of my personality in my teaching as far as I'm do these days, but humor and support and optimism can be a very valuable pedagogical tool. So if you can hear the difference between them, and I'm sure that you can, then you have now cleared a direction for the voice to, over time, this doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen really well over a semester, to start to educate the TBB singers how to manage this, how to adjust the vowel, how do you put more O into the ah when you're in those notes that they require the turning of the voice, the cricothyroids to be activated so that the voice can go higher. Every single great artist that I have ever talked to, a TBB artist, and I've talked to a lot of them, has borne out what I'm saying exactly. They use their own vocabulary, but the philosophical sameness is just that. It is the same. This is another one. As opposed to I know that I'll hit a ceiling that way. But the other way, that ceiling will be much higher, where the voice normally finishes its ability and range. And there are a lot of variables in the young TBB voice that we have to be aware of as teachers. The years 18 to 22 are the years where there is more physiological development in both treble voices and TBB voices than any other time in their life. So to apply these ideas while they're developing is of crucial importance. So that's why I mean I've had people say, well, yeah, I don't like to teach my boys covering because I wait until they're stronger. I've actually heard this said before. To which I would say this: I have a lot of vices, and one of them is sports cars. I love them. I love the machinery. I love the technology of them, and I love the flashiness and speed of them. I have way too many hobbies, and cars is one of them. But I use it as an analogy. I'd say to the student, okay, well, if you're going to wait till you're older before you can figure out how to cover your voice, I would suggest to you something otherwise. And that is that this is not at all about strength and power. This is about coordination. So if you're a car, if you, the student, you're a Lamborghini or a Maserati or a Ferrari or a Porsche, and I'm a Chevy Malibu, and we're on a racetrack, and I'm going to race my Chevy Malibu against your Lambo, okay? I know how that's going to turn out. But what's going to happen if you don't have a steering wheel in either one of those cars when you hit turn number 1? You're going to crash the car. And you could crash your voice. And by screaming and yelling the top, without that information, you're running the risk of serious injury to that possibly quite beautiful, God-given instrument. So we all need to have a steering wheel from day 1 of our studies, for both genders, for sure. But tonight's conversation is on the TBB gender of singing. You have to learn to steer. This applies to the idea of rotating, the idea of girare, the idea of drehen, the idea of covering. All of those things, these terms, need to be made extremely clear to the student. They will not pick this up on their own. This is the technique that needs to be applied to this wonderful God-given instrument that they come into the studio with. Because without one, you're not going to get anywhere. Faith without works is dead. You need the works. This is providing the works to the faith, the love of singing, the instrument. And so these are a couple of exercises. The other one from before, I like to start with you, 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 you. If you all have access to the article, they're all printed in there. And so a wonderful way to warm up the voice, and this is a gentle way, just this 5-note descending thing on E and U. We know on the vowel chart then is a chart that begins with E and ends with U. The alpha and omega of E, A, A, O, U is E and U. They both happen to be the most naturally closed vowels in the spectrum of vowels. E, U, they're both totally closed. So if I'm warming up my students with ew, 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 what am I warming up? I'm warming up the closure of the vowel from one end of it to the other while descending. So I'm already waking up this activity of girare with just those 2 vowels. And that's why I use that. Finally, before we get into some singing, this is all, very, very quickly described. But I love this quote that my wife found and gave to me of Michael Jordan. People didn't believe me when I told them I practiced harder than I played, but it was true. That's where my comfort zone was created. By the time the game came, all I had to do was react to what my body was already accustomed to doing. So if you're working very hard on over and over and over and over in your practice room. Then by the time you do a studio class or you do some kind of recital or you do a competition, then when you begin, tu lo sai quanto t'amai, tu lo sai crudel. All of those oohs and all of those ohs are on the closed side. And I find that sound, I find, as Luciano would say, that noble sound, because that's the definition that Italians have said to me, that what chiaroscura is, light and dark together in the tone. And they characterize the most beautiful sound by that entity, chiaroscura. Giuseppe Verdi wrote a lot of letters talking about why he wrote the vocal line for the TBB voices the way he did. There's nowhere to hide in Verdi with the arias, and I'm sure that anybody who has sung them knows this, because the tessitura, or where the line of the aria is in Verdi and Mozart and Donizetti and Bellini, but say Verdi for now, he wrote in the zona di passaggio all the time, because he felt it was there that the most beautiful quality of the TBB voices was brought out, was shown in the theater. It was the most beautiful quality because it was characterized by chiaroscura. So if you're going to be singing Italian bel canto opera, or what came after Italian bel canto opera, Puccini, Verdi, Mascagni, Cilea, all those guys, you would have to be able to master this passaggio singing in order to sing those composers successfully. So that's the talk part of this whole thing. And now I would like to. This is just. This is also. I'm not sure if this is in my article, but these are for the tenor voice. This is an interesting list of suggested repertoire. Tu lo sai, which I was just singing. Tu lo sai quanto t'amai. Tu lo sai. You can help them practice that. That is a very deceptively difficult aria. It's difficult to manage from a coordinative point of view. Not difficult because it's dangerous, so it has big high notes in it. It has that passaggio focus that needs to be worked out. Già sole del Gange a little easier, Alma del Core a little harder. Drink to me only with thine eyes, the thirst that from the soul doth rise. There's just a very gentle ascent into that area, and on we go down the list there. Weep you no more, sad fountains. Fear no more the heat of the sun. Difficult, but it doesn't go very high. But it makes you deal with this, and these are to be assigned. The così aria, non siate ritrosi. I'm a little high. It's a D natural in the baritone part. But those are places where you can begin to experiment. I love to give a young baritone voice, for example, Lord God of Abraham from the Elijah. Lord God of Abraham, Isaac and Israel. What are you starting on? The closed O on an E flat. What a wonderful way to apply this idea in a very beautiful Mendelssohn aria. Okay. I'm going to stop my share and go back. Okay. Okay. Who is it that is here that would like to begin singing?
All right, so either Oscar or Mark, whichever one of you would like to begin, you can unmute yourself and begin singing.
I can go first.
Okay.
Where are you? Oh, there you go. Hello.
Hello.
You're Oscar?
Yes.
Oscar, what are you going to sing for all of us?
I'm going to sing O del mio amato ben.
Okay.
O del mio amato ben, perduto in canto, lunge dagli occhi miei, chi mena gloria e vanto, or per le mute stanze, sempre la cerco e chiamo, con pieno il cor di speranze, ma cerco invan, chiamo invan, e il pianger me si caro, che di pianto sol nutro il cor. Mi sembra senza lei tristi ogni oco, notte mi sembra il giorno, mi sembra gelo il fuoco, se pur talvolta spero di darmi ad altra e cura, sol mi tormento un pensiero, ma senza lei che farò? Mi par così la vita, vana cosa, senza il mio ben.
I love App Componist. It has a mind of its own, doesn't it? Okay, Oscar. Uh, this is very beautiful, sensitive, expressive, heartfelt singing.
Thank you.
What? Yeah. Um, yeah. You catch a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and all I heard out of you was honey. Good for you. What?
Thank you.
Where are you in school?
I am a junior in high school.
In high school. So next year you're going to be looking at schools.
Yes.
And where are you? Where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles, California.
Uh-huh. I went to school at USC, and I'm from Santa Rosa up north. So I know that area really well. It's a big area. Good for you. All right. So let me just ask you, besides Odel Mio Amato Ben, what other repertoire are you and your teacher working on?
I've sung Di Forella recently.
Mhm.
Schubert, and Come Away Death, the Quilter. Also, we're starting to learn Morgen and Nacht und Träume. And yeah, we did also music for a while.
Okay. So generally you like the slower, a little more sedate, a little more sad uh, pieces, right? And do you
Yes.
do you counter that with anything that is more moving?
um, well, Die Forella is a little bit
True. True.
faster.
Yeah. Have you ever
Also, I
worked
did
on the Purcell "I'll Sail Upon the Dog Star"? Do you know that one? I'll
I do not
sail
know that
upon the
song.
Dog Star. Dun dee da dun dun da. You know that one?
I have not. I have not
Yeah,
heard of that
yeah,
one.
it'd be good. I mean, because you sing very, well, like I told you, very with a very heartfelt and a very beautiful, expressive thing going on with your singing. But what a young singer always needs to do to balance out everything in terms of repertoire is things that are more agile and more moving. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Now, in this piece, O del mio amato ben, what do you feel, if you feel anything, that is tricky for you or not as easy as you would like?
I think definitely the high notes the second time around. The Senza le che farò.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes I feel like I'm pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. This particular Donaudi song is not that demanding in terms of what we've been talking about tonight because you just have those two F's, right? And they can be sung in a very modal register. Ma senza lei che farò? Kind of the middle there for your kind of voice. Do you identify with tenor?
Yes.
Well, you belong to a very special club. We don't let just anyone in, Oscar, do we? No. Good, good. Now remember, I don't know if you picked up on this thing I said about the vowel chart. E A R O U. What is on the one end that's totally closed? E. What is on the other end that's totally closed? U. So there is an Italian pedagogical term called aggiustamento. All that means is adjustment. So, in order to have the phenomena of the voice turning, the voice rotating that we've been talking about, for that to occur on ma senza lei che farò, those are both written in Italian as a more open vowel, che farò, which would be the open e, senza, possibly the closed a. I have to check on that. Senza, maybe not. Maybe they're both the open phonetic, the large e, in the IPA. But
Yes.
if you're singing an F like that, and they don't quite feel as easy as you would like them to be, it's because vocally you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole on those two F's. So, what do you think you could do that would help you there in terms of adjusting the vowel? Anything come to mind? No, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just want to see what you think.
Um. Hmm. Maybe. Maybe open more. Open up. Open up. As my mouth more.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Yeah. I'm not. I'm not too sure.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate you telling me exactly what's going on in your thinking, because that's where we must start as student and teacher. Is where are you? What are you thinking? Okay. I would do actually, Oscar, the opposite. And this is what doesn't occur to young TBBs such as yourself. But this is what I was told to do by a really, really good teacher, really good tenor rather, really good. And so instead of opening Ma sale che farò, I'm opening the vowel, but I'm kind of yelling at you and everybody else that might be sitting listening to me. So what if we went the other way? Sensale che farò. In order to close that a little bit, we have the here, but if we're going towards E, and we know E is completely closed, then we'd have to go E, I, E. Open, A, the closed A vowel, like, hey. Hey, I'm from Toronto. I hear that a lot because Toronto's across the lake from me, right? Okay, hey, but they have a beautiful closed A vowel, and I admire them for that when I hear it. The word Leben in German. In einem bisschen heller der Schoßen früher, die launische Vorderle, vorüber wie ein Pfeil. Ich stand an dir geschaut. I'm trying to find an A vowel. Und ein süßer rotes Mund und Fisch ein Bein. No, I can't find it. Okay, I just thought that would be a German one. There isn't in that song. But can you say for me, E?
E.
Now saying E.
E.
Now I say E, where I can almost not tell the difference. Try it.
E.
E,
E.
E. Eh?
E.
So now, where are we? Can you play have you got a keyboard in front of you?
I don't in front of me. Sorry.
Just play the audio, the piano track, just a couple of bars until I put up my hand. Just want to be sure I know where you are. So my keyboard is not plugged in. Well, okay. Sol mi tormenta un pensiero. So then you have ma, the E natural, and you usually do ma sensale, right? But what if we do ma sensale che farò senza che? Can you just sing that alone? Sol mi torment.
Sol mi torment un pensiero, ma senza le che farò.
Bingo. Do you feel a little difference with how that sounds and feels in your throat?
Yes.
You can even go a little further to explore that, which would be ma sin sale ki faro, like kick that vowel. Sing that for me. Ma sin sale, right there.
Ma senza le che farò.
There's no now something's different. That sound now has a qualitative, in my mind, a huge improvement in quality. You give the impression just by doing that, Oscar, that you know what you're doing as a technician. Just like that. So what are you, 16 as a junior?
I am 17.
When's your birthday?
August 27th.
So you're 17 in a few months, right? Okay.
17 now. August in quite a few months.
Right. So you're first third into being 17. This is
Yes.
quite impressive that you can give me that kind of timbre and that kind of musicality at that age. So
Thank you.
my advice, in other words, the point of me telling you this, right, is that when you're dealing with an F natural in this Donaudi piece, when you're dealing with that, you want to have the option to allow the voice to turn. How do you get it to turn? By closing the vowel. How do you close sensale kefaro? By going from sensa to sensa to sinsa until it happens. Sometimes I might have a tenor sing sinsa, going that far until the phenomena that I'm waiting for, that physiological and acoustic sound that is this glorious, mysteriously beautiful thing, it comes into the room. Steering your Lambo so you don't hit the wall. You paid well over $200,000 for that car. You don't want to crash it in the first turn. You have to know how to steer it. Because what I'm hearing in your throat is a Lambo. That's a beautiful sound. Good for you.
Thank
And
you.
you never, ever want to push that voice into something that it doesn't understand how to do or won't do, because you only have one. And you have to love this voice, and you have to care for this voice. So when I'm telling my TBB students at Eastman, I tell them always practice between these two dynamics, mezzo piano to mezzo forte. Not forte, not piano pianissimo. Somewhere in there, in the middle of your dynamic range, where it's supported, but it's not forced as much as possible. Now, let's just quickly go to the first verse, right? Remember that one? How that goes?
Yes.
Forget what the text is. Ba be ba ba dee da 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 da.
Yes.
What do you have?
It is sorry. The con pieno il cor di speranza.
Ah, okay. So con piano il cor di speranze. Now we have ma cerco in van, chiamo in van. So let's do a little experiment. Okay? I'd like you to sing this. Ma cerco in van, chiamo. Almost sounds like the New York governor that's no longer governor. Cuomo, right? Chiamo in van. Why?
Chiomo.
On purpose. Try it. Just sing it by con piano il cor, a cappella.
Con pieno il cor di speranze, ma cerco invan, chiamo invan,
Chiamo in van. Yo.
chiamo invan.
Good. Now that you've got it, go back and sing the phrase again with a little bit more to say, okay, here we go, let's find out. Because if you were standing in front of me in my studio and we were doing an information lesson, somewhere along the way in that lesson, I would say to you, Oscar, you can do no wrong. You can do no wrong. I'm here to listen to what you do and what you don't do. I'm not judging you. And none of us are, you know. So, find out. Cerco in van, chiamo in van. With gusto. Okay? Con piano il cor.
Con pieno il cor di speranze, ma cerco invan, chiamo invan.
Right. And then e pianger me si caro. So what I did there, me, because it's E flat, and that could be arguably in that zona di passaggio. Try that. E il pianger me. Right there.
Il pianger me,
Si caro. Finish.
si caro,
Che di
che di pianto,
Sing, finish.
che di pianto, sol nutrò il cor.
Right. Beautiful. So that's what I would ask my, in your case, tenor, to adjust, to learn what that is, because now Now you're not using the brute force of your voice, but all of the overtones of your voice to carry the day. This is how you manage through learning through the entire, say, operatic world that you're going to sing. Where you're going to do this and where you're not going to do this. How you're going to navigate your way through, like almost like a GPS map of the role. So you know just where to modify, you know just where to turn the sound, where not only does it sound fantastic and beautiful, but you come away at the end of the evening with far less wear and tear and fatigue into your throat. So Luciano used to say, when I sing well, I sing Rigoletto really well. I know when I do and I know when I don't. But when I do, I know I could turn around and sing it again. Because it saves the voice, it utilizes the voice in a freer and healthier way. Okay, very nice to hear you and to work with you, Oscar.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Good luck out there.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you again, Oscar. Mark, if you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and begin as well.
Hi, Professor Swensen.
Hi.
Hi, I'll be singing You're Built by Schubert.
Okay.
Ich stand in dunklen Träumen und starrt ihr Bildnis an. Und das geliebte Antlitz heimlich zu lieben begann. Und ihr Lieben zog sich ein Lächeln wunderbar. Und wie von Wehmutstränen erglänzte ihr Augenball. All meine Tränen flossen mir von den Wangen herab. Und ach, ich kann es nicht glauben, dass ich dich verloren habe.
Okay, Mark, where do you come from with that kind of singing? Huh?
I go to boarding school in Vermont.
You go to a boarding school in Vermont?
Yeah, I'm working with, I have two teachers they run a company called Tundi that they do like Wagner shows up in Brattleboro, Vermont, and they hooked me up. So I do coaching with them, and then they hooked me up with this guy out in Spain.
Uh, they they put on Wagnerian thing.
Yeah, they're doing. I'm not. I only do chorus stuff if they let me do that. But they're doing Tristan on Isolde, Tosca, Turandot, and they're doing the first two of the Ring cycle this summer.
Okay, so big projects, huh?
Yeah,
And so what year in boarding school are you?
I'm a senior.
High school senior?
Yeah,
So you're 18?
I'm 19.
19. Okay. And so what are you going to do after this? Is boarding school end as you being a
Yeah.
senior?
So I just applied to. I actually applied to Eastman, applied to Curtis and Juilliard, and then I'm also looking into some liberal arts schools if those don't work out, and then would still do opera and like music, of course, till grad school.
A liberal arts school if this doesn't work out. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
This is going to work out.
Okay.
Very interesting. So why did you pick Ihr Bild of Schubert to sing?
Um, I I kind of I started working with this new teacher in Valencia this probably last year, but until around last. Actually, I had a lesson with you in July, I think. Um, yeah, but then I was really just yelling high notes and like was using sublime pressure, and I got this new teacher, and he pretty much said if you want to get into conservatory, you're gonna have to really cramp for the next 4 months. So he just coached me through it. So Ear Built is one of the more recent pieces I knew. So I learned it after I relearned how to sing, so I don't have to worry about old habits.
So you're telling me that you and I met in July?
Yeah, I sounded a lot shoutier. It was when your son had the yeah.
Well, that just shows to Goya what happens to a 65-year-old brain. You looked familiar, and the sound of your voice was familiar, but I could not have placed you then. Well, uh, I'm really glad that I saw you again.
Thank you.
And what your teacher, since I saw you, has done for you, I want you to do something for me.
Mhm.
I want you to extend my heartfelt compliments to him. It's a him, okay?
Yeah.
because because I was waiting for how you were going to sing. Das ist dich verloren hab, and you did exactly that. First of all, verloren, that it's you that I've lost. You're saying there.
Yeah.
Das ist dich verloren. That's a very closed O, like tot. You know, very, and you did that, and so you brought this beautiful sound, this timbre, which is not heard very often by someone so young and so understanding of all of this. So you've got a teamwork thing that's working beautifully. You have a very inherently expressive sound, and one of the characteristics of it that makes it so expressive is the vibrato, how your voice spins. It elicits, just by doing that, emotion, a very moving kind of emotion. So good for you. Let me ask you this: besides this Schubert song, what else are you working on? Repertoire.
Um, recently, I was doing rep that was probably too big for me until right around this summer, and then recently, the heaviest things I've worked on are the Disputnis and the Tucano Chiania, and then I've also worked on Tis the Last Rose of Summer, Caro Mio Ben. I'm about to start working on the Soliloquy by John Work and the Be Not Feared.
Okay. Well, I think he has reined you in a little bit, and
Yeah.
that's good. But I would rein you in even more. I would be looking at the Mozart baritone arias, which are not particularly difficult. The two Papageno arias, the
Yeah.
Vogelfinger bin ich ja, and the suicide aria, as they call it, Up
I'm
and
I'm being trained as a tenor.
Huh?
I'm being trained as a tenor.
You are?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. It's I yeah. I'm kind of like the way I've been taught is to fill out low notes as big as you can, and the high notes you go almost to a falsetto, but you don't, and it gets gradually um, less heavy as you go
Okay.
up.
Well, your timbre is deceptive because it is quite round. I would have thought from hearing you sing this
Mm.
that you were a baritone. I would have
Okay.
thought so. But all you have to do is listen to Jonas Kaufmann,
Yeah.
and you think, well, he's a baritone, but he's not.
He's a tenor.
He has that dark-hued timbre as you do. So, all right. So, what? Hang on a second. What what is the situation with your voice as you vocalize up higher?
It it's it's kind of hit or miss. Like I've been working on using mezzo di voce to get in and out of notes without using a glottal. It kind of changes week by week. So there is probably until last week I would start slightly throaty and then it would pop out, and then I think I've started to balance that more. But it also, yeah, it's still coordinating. So I'm comfortable up to a B flat, and then I can do a B depending on the day, and then in a lesson where I'm being really like watched thoroughly by my teacher, I can the highest I've gotten is a C sharp or a D.
Hmm. And when you vocalize with your teacher
Mm.
higher,
Yeah,
what kind of vocalization do you guys do?
usually it start at the bottom of the voice, and then you go up 5 notes and then back down on various vowels, not ooh, and then
Like what? Like ah, like that?
mm, then and then you go all the way up. See how I can go, and every once in a while I do octave jumps.
Way up here. Sing that one. Ah. Okay, okay, okay. Um, Let me ask you a couple questions.
Mm.
What is your favorite vowel to sing? E, A, R, O, U. What do you like to?
Probably oh
Oh, you like O?
yeah oh yeah.
Can you sing O for me again? Oh! Now sing. What is your least favorite vowel?
Um, I enjoy. It would probably have to be a tie between ooh, just because with ooh you have to open it up more as you go up, and I'm still figuring that out. But the E vowel, it's a little tricky for me.
The
And
E,
every once in a while gets a
E and
little
E and
throaty.
U are not your BFFs.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But you like the open O. Um, where'd you go? There you are. And the ah vowel you like or not?
Uh, yeah, I like the you have to modify. It's be weird to modify as you go up, but I enjoy.
Okay. So let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
What are the vowels that you feel that are the ones that seem to travel to the front of your sound?
E and are you talking in terms of like
Where do
in
you
lip
feel that?
position?
Where do you feel
Oh,
the
where I feel it?
mark? Yeah.
I feel E really for ooh. It's weird because my lips are super pierced, but I feel it. That's where I feel the most resonance in my body, and then up to my head, and I go higher.
Okay. And where do you feel, what vowels would you identify as being the ones that are further back?
Oh, like oh and ah, they the lips aren't as rounded when I say them.
Okay. Well, I think that might be what is causing your sound in the middle to be a little, this is just me,
Yeah,
my opinion, right? A little woofy, a little overly dark,
yeah.
maybe. So if we went back and we tried something
Mm.
like this one, um, so if the vowel is, if you sang e o e, sing it for me, will you? Now, sing it the tempo I just gave to you, slower. Now, did you feel the O going back from the E when you went up,
Um,
or forward?
no, I felt it more forward, like it.
Right.
Yeah, more
That's
forward.
because it does.
Yeah.
Let me just talk to you very quickly about something called. Uh, there's two categories of vowels that we use,
Yeah.
right? Those created by the tongue. I'm sure I told you this. The tongue, which are E, A, and Ah. E, A, and Ah, because I don't need to do anything with my mouth to create them. If I go E, A, I, E, A, I, E, you hear three vowels clear as day,
Ah,
but nothing moves in terms of my mouth or lips. Those are tongue vowels because it's the tongue that is creating those vowels and everything in between them. And then there's O, right? E, A, O. I need my lips for O, and I need my lips for oo. So, anytime that we are using our lips to create a vowel like O and oo or the umlauts, U, French E, anytime that we do that, we know that those vowels should be thought of as going forward because they are lip vowels. The lips, as if they draw the vowel forward into those lips. So anything that is E, A, and Ah, we think about the word England. If you say that for me, England,
England,
stay on the NG. England.
England,
Feel where your tongue touches the roof of your mouth there.
England,
Just relax your mouth. England.
England,
No. Stay on the NG longer.
England.
Look for now. Look for the E around there. Around there. It's where the hard palate becomes soft. If you take the tip of your tongue and run it up the top of your mouth until it turns soft and spongy, feel that?
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
for E there. So if you look for E there, see, you need no lip at all to create that. But if you do then suddenly come forward with your thinking for the O and really round your lips for the O, not halfway. So, C, O, E. What would that sound like? Now, for fun, Mark, can you give me twice as much lip as that? Like crazy. So now a couple of things have happened. The O now sounds like O, doesn't sound like anymore. See, you do before. See, there's more of a focus. There's more of a beam of focused tone because you're shaping it that way. It sounds like that. And so a couple of things happen. The vibrato begins to speed up into an 18-year-old sound and not a 45-year-old sound. You'll have plenty of time to sound like you're 45.
When I'm 45.
Waste it now when you're not.
Yeah.
You must learn now to begin to sing your age because your throat is 18. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's 18. It's not 45. So you don't want to impose an older, more powerful, more robust, more mature sound on this young throat. Not at all. And you found a way, your teacher and you have found a way for that voice to travel upward very successfully. That's good. But I would be looking at these vowels as more of their pure state of vowel. Ah, the Italian vowel ah, bacio, right? We don't have that vowel in our English, not at all. We have ah or
Ah.
We're lazy. Us
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxons are just, we're marshmallows. We're mashed potatoes when it comes to ah. The Italians as crisp can be. My wife and I were just there in Florence, just there to hear our son sing. And what I heard was just this impeccably clear language all around me on the street, in the restaurant, didn't matter. It was just so wonderful to hear that. So,
So
if you,
more precise vowels.
I'm sorry.
So crisper vowels.
Well, just you have to really listen for e a ah o
Ah,
o
e, e, a, o, u.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now sing ah oh ah, but that kind of ah that's clear.
Ma,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how your voice develops over these next few years,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of it, right? There's a lot of it, but you never want to make your voice sound older than it is. Believe me, when you're my age, you would have wished that you sounded like you were 18 or 20 again.
Yeah.
You got to trust me on that.
All right.
You don't have my hindsight, but I do. So
Okay.
you want to train and sing like a young guy, a young
Yeah.
singer, not an old singer. Okay?
All right.
Well, it's great to hear you again, and
Thank you.
yeah, please extend my congratulations to your teacher. I think
I will certainly do that. That's very,
wonderful going on there.
very kind of you.
Okay, take care.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mark, and thank you again to Professor Swensen for the class. We have just a few minutes remaining, so if anyone has a question, please feel free to unmute yourself. We probably only have time for about 2 questions, so please unmute yourself and ask.
Okay, well, I guess I'll kind of ask this question. So I've been doing something very similar to this with what my professor calls as vowel modification.
Mhm.
It seems as what you're talking about is the same thing as what my professor tells me about, where he's telling me to go closer to the closed vowels when going up top as to stop from pushing, which is am I correct in assuming that what you are teaching there is the same thing?
To close the vowel as you go higher so that you won't push. Did I get that right?
Yes, to avoid the shouting as you were as you were displaying earlier, and so that it's more controlled up top.
So the effect of following this procedure, which it sounds like your professor is telling you exactly what I'm saying, sounds like the way you're describing it.
Mhm.
One of the attributes of that is that you are not pushing your voice nearly as hard, because
Yeah.
it's more of a coordinative type mastery, right? Not a brute
Yes.
force kind of mastery. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What are you? What voice type are you?
I'm a baritone. I'm a sophomore at Belmont University right now, studying
Okay,
under Dr. Mark Watley.
okay, great, great. And
Yeah.
what is the music you're working on right now?
So I just finished singing Le Verso by Fore, Le Matalo, which is also by Fore, Non T'amo Più, Non più andrai from La Noce di Figaro.
So when you worked on, for example, the later solo, right? You have tant les horizons qui leurrent. What would your teacher tell you about that high on leurre?
So, we really only talked about it once, and he said when I was going up there, you don't want to. The initial was send more air, don't try and shove it. And
Okay.
then when it was talking about the vowel, we ended up more on a closed O, kind of mixed with a schwa almost.
Actually, the vowel on that word leurre is the phonetic OE,
Hmm.
which is so lipped. It's such a lip vowel. Qui leurre. Say that for me.
Qui leure.
Like crazy exaggerated. Do it again.
Qui leure.
And so in the key that you're singing this, is that high note an F?
Yes.
Yeah. And how does that? How do you feel about when you get to that point?
I feel actually I love that. That's my favorite part of the song. It's a lot of fun for me because it was something that was challenging for me, and I love taking on a challenge. And it helped me a lot. He was able to really fix that part of my voice with me. So
How does that go?
uh so Tanta is yeah. Do you want me to sing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh okay. Tanta les horizon
Except
That
you're
was a D
you're a
probably.
step too low. You're a
Stuck too
step
low?
too low.
Okay. Uh,
Entre les
I think,
horizons qui leurrent.
yeah.
Try it.
Tant, tant les horizons qui. Hold up. Let me play that on my end real quick because I am screwing that up completely. My bad.
I can't quite remember it either.
It is going to be a. Tant les horizons qui le.
Leurrent, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Le.
qui leurrent. So if you sing
Okay.
key with no lip, none, and then ton, let's hear what that sounds like. Ba ba ba, just those three notes. You gave me no lip. Give me a ton of it. You
Ton of
leurrent.
it on the high note. Okay.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So by shaping that, you're tuning the because you're using your lips. It draws the vowel into that sweet spot that is very relieving
Okay.
to the voice, and you get that beautiful, that exciting, beautiful, warm top that you just showed me. So what I think your teacher and I think we're very much on the same page.
Okay.
Okay, good for you.
Thank you.
Good, no, it's good to hear you. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Cody. I think we had one last question. It's the last one we have time for, and this is from Jordy Lawless.
Hi, teach voice lessons from my home, and I occasionally have TBB singers come through my studio, and I'm wondering at what point should I help them to find another teacher as a teacher, and is it always okay and fair for me as my voice type? I'm a mezzo soprano. In my voice type to be able to teach them, and that's okay, or with these young boys.
Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Say something so you become full screened.
Oh, hello.
There we go. Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. I married a mezzo soprano, and we met at Juilliard many moons ago in 1980, I think it was, when we met each other. And she would uh, want to advise you to never say or think that again. That do I need to send this TBB student to somebody else of his voice type? We not as teachers, are we not responsible for the training and understanding of every voice type, unless you're some sort of niche specialist? And they do exist, but if you have a group of kids that you're teaching private lessons in your room there with the Christmas tree, right? Then you would want to know how to help your TBBers. I say that because so I'm starting my 21st year at Eastman, and before that I had 4 years at the University of Arizona, and before that a year at University of Wisconsin. But the conversation across the kitchen table that was most interesting for me was listening to my wife explain the intricacies of working with a treble voice and where the challenges are for that voice. Because I, as a TBB, or also known as a male, that of course, I have a very strong philosophy about how to teach TBB voices because I'm one of them, and that's my vocal and musical inherent experience. But that's only half the challenge that I have. What about all my treble voices? So I need to then, and the word is this, acquire. I had to acquire that understanding and that information first from across the kitchen table, but talking to my colleagues. I mean, I had many conversations with a beloved departed colleague, Rita Shane, who's one of the great queens of the night at the Met and elsewhere, a wonderful, wonderful colleague that we miss terribly. But I had conversations with her about how she worked with her young women. And so that whole thing, that I had to acquire those things, and they are quite different. How you approach the treble voices vis-a-vis the TBB voices, and it's mainly where the girare, or the turn of that young voice, is in the treble staff. It's true, isn't it, that the lower middle voice to the chest is where the big break is. But for us, the TBB voices, that break is at the top of that staff, where there's much more subglottal air pressure that we have to deal with. So the interchange between the middle and the lower tones is much more delicate because the breath pressure is so much less. So right there is a huge difference in how you work, how your understanding of how everything works is. So the answer to your question is no, no. I think you should strive to find out how this thing works. And just speaking as one person, anytime that you had a question and you wanted to write to me, or if you wanted to send me the recording of one of your TBBs that you're having trouble with, this is what the fraternity, this is what the group of voice teachers I dream about having, is this exchange of ideas instead of exchange of egos and posturing, which is so prevalent. But the actual exchange of ideas, because then it becomes all about the student, and it becomes nothing about the teacher. So, yeah, I mean, give it a try. I mean, read my article, and if you have questions about that or it doesn't make any sense, Swensen at esm.rochester.edu. There I am. I really mean it. I mean it, because I think we're here to pass on the art form, and we want it to survive, and the only way we can get it to survive is to be passing it on. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So again, everyone, I just want to express a sincere thank you to Professor Swensen for your time and your expertise this evening. As he mentioned, his article is online on our website, as well as this masterclass video will be available to our subscribers in our online video library to watch again in case there's something that you missed. And I invite you to invite other people to watch as well who were not able to make it tonight. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed the class. Congratulations again to our singers, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Good night.
Bye-bye.